Does Pluto exert gravity on you right now? Or moreover, is there a force of gravity of Pluto on you? And if universal gravity is a correct concept, the answer would have to be yes. So let's go ahead and check our answer. I'm saying yes here. Let's see what it says. It says, according to the idea of universal gravity, yes, though it's very weak. Why would it be very weak? Well, Pluto is very, very far away, right? And it turns out the farther away objects are, the weaker the force of gravity they can exert on a person is. It also depends on the mass of the object. So Pluto is maybe very massive compared to things at our scale, like even things like cars or buses or whatever, or even big ships or whatever. But on the other hand, it's super, super far away, right? And there's definitely other objects out there. I was going to say other planets, and I always forget that Pluto's actually a dwarf planet now. But anyway, but like you look at like Jupiter. Jupiter is both closer and more massive. So you could probably bet that the force of Jupiter's gravity on you is actually stronger than the force of Pluto's gravity. But both of those are actually small enough that you don't notice, and they're probably not even measurable, because it says here. So that brings up kind of an interesting question, because it does say here it could probably never be measured, but then it says, however, the idea of universal gravity has never been falsified. Because one of the things that is worth saying is if we say, well, Pluto's exerting a force of gravity on you right now, but you can't measure it. Okay, in science, we're not really supposed to make claims that can't be measured. So maybe making that statement is not quite the right thing to do. Instead, if I just said, well, any two objects can exert gravity upon each other, then it would become the job of the scientists not to necessarily test that for every single two objects in the whole universe. We're not obligated to that. But we are obligated to try some different objects and see if it ever is falsified. And that has been done. So when I say here the idea of universal gravity has never been falsified, that's what that means. There have been numerous experiments done, even with objects here based on Earth, relatively small objects compared to things like Pluto and Jupiter and even the Earth itself, where we've been able to measure a force of gravity between them, and it always obeys the rule that Newton has set down. In fact, there's been searches to see if it would ever deviate from that, because that would be really interesting if it ever did. And so far, those have not been successful. So far, Newton has continued to pretty much be right on with what he said. So I put at the end there, it's therefore a scientific truth that Pluto is pulling on you right now. I mean that in the sense of like, what does scientific truth mean? If we're talking about a theory that has been thoroughly tested and always found to work, that is pretty much as close to truth as you ever get in science, and that's our way of therefore establishing that's true. But like any idea in science, if we ever find it not to work for some reason, it'll either need to be modified or thrown out. I'm kind of doubtful that gravity would ever be completely thrown out. Modification, though, there's already been modification, it turns out, but I think this video is getting long enough, and I'm not going to digress further on that tangent.